Hello, welcome to another episode of Untracing Trauma. We are live. I have my guest here, Levi, and we'll get right into that in a second. But first, we'll do some housekeeping and introductions. I'm Jegayity, your host of this podcast, webisode, thingamabob, whatever you want to call it. And I thank you for being here today. I do want to shout out to all my patrons up top. Thank you so much. I love every single one of you. Once I figure out how to do an overlay graphic, then I will do that. But I do have credits in the description. But let me see if I can run through as many people as I can. So you got Bart, Adele, Amy, Anna, Arget, Candi, Carol, Clare, Cousin Jay, Gena, Goth, Barbie, Heather C, Jubilee, Just Cuz, Cat, Katie, Mary, ModernDayMasquerade, Froody, Chick. And we also have our YouTube. Oh, there's a lot more. That's top level. Okay, we're not gonna do that because I don't want to waste my time making it prepare. That's my fault. Okay, so Instagram is down, but that's all right. We are here on Facebook and YouTube, everywhere else. If you are an audio person and want to catch up later, you can always go to Spotify and Apple Music and all those places. I'm a little bit behind there, so YouTube gets it first. But you can listen as soon as that is up. We are live, so we have a chat, and we'll have a Q&A section after the interview portion. So we'll probably do an interview for the first 40 minutes or so, and then we'll maybe even a little shorter so we can have more, because I know people are probably wanting to ask stuff. So let's just roll right into it. Welcome to the show, Levi. And can you please introduce yourself and maybe what you're known for?
Yeah, my name's Levi O'Brien. I was in the film Jesus Camp as a 12-year-old kid, and I had the rat tail, if you don't know, or if you look up photos from the movie, you'll definitely see the kid with the rat tail, right? Kind of a unique little feature there. But no, I grew up in church, grew up loving Jesus, and so we went to one of these church camps, and there was a film crew there, and they basically asked if I wanted to be on, and that's kind of how this whole thing started. But that's a little bit about who I am and why I'm on here.
Yeah, you're internet infamous. Well, I guess real world infamous, since it was. I'm so used to the internet. It was an actual movie, and it won actual awards for independent filmmaking. So I'm sure people might be familiar with it. If not, I highly recommend it. It's the most terrifying movie you'll see in this decade, this century, maybe. At least for me, I don't know. We'll get into it. But I was watching it when I was getting ready today, doing my makeup, even though it's like only half done. And I was sitting there thinking about it, and I was like, this is so relevant still. And that's so weird to me, is like in the video, or when you were a kid, obviously we were in the middle of like 9/11 and a lot of different like war on terror type stuff, and it so easily transfers straight over to what's happening in the Middle East today. Obviously very different situations, but a lot of the talking points that you see from evangelical Christians on the news kind of mirror exactly how that movie starts. And I was like, wait, what? When am I watching this? So I think that's interesting. I think people should go back and revisit it, even if they haven't. So we'll start with that question, actually, and then I'm going to go backwards to your background. Do you watch the movie? And if so, how often?
Yeah, great question. I have not watched that film in years. I mean, seriously, 15 years, maybe.
Okay, fair.
I mean, it's kind of like watching your own life. Like, I was there. I don't, you know what I mean? I'm sure there's stuff, if I watched it, I'd be like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that thing there and stuff. But
probably a little cringe watching Baby You a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. And honestly, watching myself, I know it affects a lot of people. It doesn't really bother me that much. I don't know. It just doesn't. But yeah, no, yeah, looking back on the film and things like that, like, you lived it. So
yeah,
I don't know why you'd watch it so much. I don't know.
That's a fair question. Okay, so let's rewind time, since this is called Untracing Trauma. I like to focus a little bit, obviously, on the religious aspect of it all. You were raised in homeschool, is that correct?
Yeah, I was homeschooled second grade, actually, all the way through high school. First grade, I was in a private school, but kind of the same thing, right? No, but homeschooled all the way through, and then had a really good experience. Honestly, when I got to high school, we connected with a homeschool group that was kind of near our area growing up and stuff. So I got to do like plays. We did a lot of sports growing up, things like that. If you homeschool, you've got to do those things. You've got to connect with
I bet.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise the kids would just go like alone, crazy alone.
Yeah, and so
No.
yeah, I knew some weird.
So when I was watching that, I couldn't actually place exactly what denomination you were raised in. Was it what was it? Was it Pentecostal?
No,
I'm assuming there was tongues.
No, I was actually raised non-denominational.
Oh,
so,
okay.
We were just a church. My dad was actually the pastor for most of my life growing up. And it was just a church. We just believed in Jesus, believed in the Holy Spirit, healing, God, that type of stuff. So it wasn't connected to a denomination.
Interesting. See, yeah. So, because I was raised non-denominational, and I always say that non-denominational is like more aligned with Baptist teachings in my experience. And then I don't know where I was getting, I guess like the tongues and the healing and stuff feels more Pentecostal. I was much more, I guess, raised in the way of that's demonic. Like both of those things would be allowing possession. And it's just interesting like how varied non-denominational responses can be.
Yeah, it can be anything, right?
Yeah.
But no, mine was probably more leaning towards Pentecostal, somewhat evangelical, but more probably Pentecostal.
Interesting. Okay, so let's I guess go into the actual Jesus camp portion of it. When you were raised, it looked, at least like in the start of the movie, you were visiting the church that was going on. You said your dad was actually a pastor of your own church. So the people who put on Jesus camp, was this like a one-time thing for you, or were you going back? Was this like I look forward to this every summer because I'm homeschooled and there's other kids finally? How did you roll into that?
No, we got connected with, so Becky Fisher is the one who kind of like run the camp, right? She has a ministry to children, that type of thing. She kind of runs this thing, right? And so we heard about Becky Fisher and decided to travel up there with our church group, some of the kids from our church, and go to one of these services. It was like a conference. So you had like services on a couple days on a weekend, right? And so we went up for that, and the film crew just happened to be there. We didn't even know anything about that till we arrived. And so that was a surprise, but I mean, yeah,
just
right.
Shoved in there and changing your life trajectory. That's all.
Right, that's good. Yeah. And I think life presents a lot of those kind of moments for everybody at different times. Right. But no, that's kind of how we ran into the situation. And then out of the crowd, they just kind of picked 3 or 4 kids they wanted to maybe highlight. And I was one of the kids.
Interesting. So, well, I mean, I guess that's good to know is that at least it came about naturally, and it wasn't like you applying to a backstage casting, showing up and playing, Jesus Camp Kid number 5.
That's funny.
So take us through, I guess, was it impressionable on you? So like, was there specific brand of the conference then? Was that something that you felt differed from your normal church experience, or was it just like right at home, same teachings? Was there any kind of tension there between visiting different groups?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. No, I grew up really kind of experiencing God, experiencing the Holy Spirit, seeing God move and do things, right? And so going to that was kind of similar. However, the focus, and one of the things Becky Fisher is actually really good at, is she's able to get a focus on kids and not make them feel like they're secondary or less than. She's really good at raising up kids, saying, no, you're really important. And what you have to say is really important. So going to these meetings, that was felt, I think, by a lot of the kids who were there, is that like, oh my gosh, she's going to let me pray. She's going to let me, speak something from God and act and treat me like I'm the same level as anybody else.
Sure.
That was unique. There's not a lot of people even still who really get that and do that type of thing.
Yeah, we forget that kids are like little people. I say that's probably the most terrifying point and also the best point. So congrats. No, because watching just like even the start of the film, she does comment on her ability to do that. Actually, like she trumps that ability right in the very beginning of the interview. She says that she can walk into a playground, talk to any kid, and within a matter of minutes have them converted and speaking in tongues. And I'm like, scary.
Yeah,
That's a superpower that maybe you shouldn't use all the time.
yeah. And so let me ask you real quick, just a question. Like, what was the thing that scares you the most? What was the
Oh
thing that
God, where do we start, Levi? Oh no. I was gonna say I'm gonna run right into it because I'm gonna have a list of things like, are you still? Are you still? Are you still? So I think the thing that terrifies me most, let's start on like a macro level. Let's start on like the big overarching movie. And I think I guess the point that documentarians were trying to make, which is just the whole warrior spirit thing, as if evangelical Americans and regular Americans are different people. The imagery of, you know, raising up a generation of kids to go to war. War against, it's a culture war against Christmas, the gays, everything's a war, right? I think the just pure and unfiltered look at indoctrination at that level and at that age is what so many people, I guess, who weren't raised evangelical got to see for the first time. Whereas the rest of us, it was just like reliving childhood, you know, flashbacks to Battle Cry and church lock-ins.
Right.
So it's hard to say it's scary because I lived it, but it's almost, even though when you live it though, you get removed, and when you're watching the film, you're watching another group and it doesn't feel like it's something that happened to you, and you're able to inspect it closer and be like, wait, do we all sound this caught up in it? Do we all sound like we're brainwashed? And I think that's probably the macro level thesis of what's scary. And then there's the minor things like,
well, here,
you're sitting with your mom saying evolution is not true, and talking about just like how people are coming for you and being ready to die and all that sad stuff.
And I get that. So on the macro level one, I have two answers, two things I'd like to say. So you got to realize, so one, the film crew really had an agenda. Something they were looking for, something they were trying to present, right?
Right.
They had a craft that they were trying to mold and make this thing what they envisioned, right? Which I can't, you know, I can't be upset at them for that. That's how you make a film, right?
Yeah. They went in with a
absolutely.
This is what we're going to document and why. So they had a goal, of course.
And so, you know, and kudos to them. I mean, they did a great job, and they're great filmmakers. Even still today, they're still producing things. And so, if the film wasn't filmed in the way it was, not a lot. If I filmed it the way I would want to film it, people wouldn't watch it, right? It wouldn't be worth watching. And so, one of the things you got to understand is they took about 365 hours worth of footage and broke it down to about 85 minutes. Yeah. So it's similar. It's really cool. It's 365 hours because it's similar to taking one day out of your year and showing people what your year was like.
Right.
And so you can narrow down so many topics and so much focus and so many things into an agenda and make it look and seem a certain way. And again, I don't fault anybody for that approach and what they did. And they were really trying to make, like you said, on that macro level, like we were warriors wanting to go to war, you know, willing to die for this and blah, 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 blah. And I got kind of an answer on some of that. But my second answer too is that is so one of the things that's wrong with Christians. This is 20 years ago for me now, right? Yeah. 18, 19 years ago. And I've grown up a lot, had more experiences, right? One of the things that Christianity, I think, gets wrong is we're so quick to be anti things rather than pro Jesus.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because God talks about himself as loving, as kind, full of grace, full of mercy. And then we act like imbeciles and go and like fight and war. And I get what, you know, why that's in the word of God too. But we miss the point of being just pro God, pro Jesus, pro, you know, justice for a world that has hurt in it. And healing can be brought for that world, right? Like pro that God wants to restore his creation. And I mean, some people might think whatever they think on it, but Christians get that wrong.
I always like to specify too. I would say American evangelical Christians. I like to really break it down because it sounds like we're a special breed when you look at the global brand of Christianity versus the American evangelical brand of Christianity. But so I want to roll back to kind of like the point you're addressing on my macro point. So speaking of editing, I was going to ask that earlier, but I think this is actually a perfect segue into that. So do you feel as if they, how do I phrase it? Like, I don't want to say like maliciously edited the video, but do you feel like there was any kind of misinterpretations, or like, do you agree? Because it sounds kind of like maybe you don't fully agree with how the film was presented, that it didn't represent like actual beliefs. But how much of that I would say is from an adult perspective looking back? Because now you might not believe the same way. And then how much of that in the time was it actually like not what your family was believing or not what you personally were believing? Do you feel like there was any kind of miscommunication or purposeful misinterpretations?
Yeah. And so the people who were filming the film, they weren't Christians, weren't trying to pretend to be Christians, didn't have. And so I don't fault them for seeing it the way they saw it. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. And for hearing things the way they hear it. Like, for instance, the warrior thing. It's a biblical reference to just being like strong for the Lord. And it means like we don't war against people, we war against disease. Mm-hmm. We war against injustice, abuse.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. You know I would say that's how it's supposed to be interpreted. I don't know if that's how they were interpreting it when you were a child, though. That's what I'm trying to figure out. How much of that is you understanding it now versus the actual message?
The kids are painted in the war paint and have the army stuff. Right? They were doing it's just a thing we do, and Christians do it, not all of them, but some of them, right? Like you dress up and you do a thing, you play a song, and but the point wasn't to actually have swords and fight people.
No, I mean, I think we hopefully most of us in the chat understand it's like not like a physical violence. I mean, some people don't get the message, I guess. But for, I guess, like back to it's something that you already touched on really by saying that you wish Christians would take a step back and focus more on the message of love instead of the anti everything, right? And I think that especially when you have a group of children and they're impressionable enough to a level that if, for example, again, I don't want to speak for you because I wasn't you.
Yeah.
But if you're raised in like a homeschool environment where you only have conservative radio going on, you only have certain news channels going on, all you hear is, even if it's touching only on being a warrior of the spirit and you need to fight against demonic energies to keep it yourself pure, whatever that may be, that can easily get transferred onto groups of people, especially when you're listening to debates like gay marriage on the conservative radio. That was big 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of different, war on Christmas is the easiest one, but like a lot of different talking points that are just thrown out there that are using the same language, a fight against, the war against.
Yeah. And
here you are thinking, well, I'm a warrior. They told me to. So there's a lot of transference there without it meaning to happen, maybe. I would disagree with that. I think it's very purposeful, but
it's a worldview difference. Politics is so secondary to me. I don't think of the US or anything being fixed through politics. Now, some of the leaders in that film had that idea. Mm-hmm. I don't.
That's what I'm trying to get at. Yeah. How much of it, I guess, do you agree with disagreeing with it? Like, as in like, yeah, that was totally Becky, but that's not what I personally believe.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of that happening, or?
Let's get real specific. If
you have one, go for it. Because
the gay marriage, right?
Okay.
Gay marriage as a topic, as an issue, blah, blah, blah. To me, when gay marriage becomes lawful in certain states, federal government, blah, blah, Obama, all that type of stuff, I don't care. Like, yeah. It's not the thing that's driving my life.
That's not what makes your Christianity.
It's not. It doesn't make me a Christian, and it doesn't affect me in the way I raise my family. Mm-hmm. And so for me, it's like, that's not even a battle to fight. If I wanted to think of it that way, right? Like, it's not something, no, I want to teach my kids loving people, all people, anybody. You love, like, learn to love, because Jesus did that. So let's be like Jesus. Like, where's the Jesus that looked at the woman who committed adultery and said, hey, whoever hasn't sinned, you throw the first stone?
Mm-hmm.
Where are the Christians who can act like that Jesus?
They far and few between.
You can think of Jesus as God, Jesus as the Son of God, or just a really good guy, or whatever you want to think. But where's the people who can emulate that Christianity by that guy who said those things? Right.
And I think that's obviously the key message that hopefully anybody should have from the religion. And it's been so bastardized, I want to say, and just, it's been, like you said, once politics enter the narrative, once politics become part of the moral framework of the religion, then you just have man's opinion, you have man's, you know,
and as Christians,
goals.
we should be involved in politics, involved in media, you know, I'm Christian, right? Involved in music and things like that, but not because we're anti whatever the thing of the day is, because it's going to be different 10, 20, 25, 30 years.
It's always a moving target. It's always a moving target.
Yeah. It's not, that's not, we don't want to be anti those things. We need to be pro. We want to end homelessness in the USA. Right?
Yeah.
I think any Christian can get behind that. Anybody really can get behind that.
You would be really surprised. You should come over to my channel sometime and just take over my comments. Because if I say something like end homelessness, oh, it's going to be a fight. It's intense. It's intense. I talk to a lot of Christians and you're kind of in a minority, sadly.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't make any sense to me. But no. And so, like, you know, those are the types of things. We want to be pro-love. We want to be pro, you know, that war shouldn't be starting and those types of things. And I think that's a very basic level. I have a lot deeper beliefs on things. But as far as like this chat and the people in this chat, I think we can all agree on that type of stuff.
Yeah. And I think that's important for you to convey to the world too. I think that's big in the where are they now part of the question is as an adult, obviously you're not going to have the same views as when you were a preteen. And I think that's important to like stand up for what you believe in now. And like you said, you're a Christian. So I think it's important to defend your faith and to defend it in a way where it's for the good, for the positive, to keep it rolling towards the right things. I think that's something I definitely want you to have this platform to do. But I want to roll it back. That being said, but do you think that the way you were raised is at odds with what you believe as a Christian man now? Like, do you believe that maybe your parents were on a different level? Do you believe, because from what it sounds like, from what you're saying now, it doesn't sound like the same things that you were saying in the movie or that your parents even were saying in the movie. So it feels like your childhood might be a little bit different than where you grew to be.
I sound conflicting, right? From what was presented in the film to what I am now. But that's the bias of the film.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
It's actually not the way it was back then.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? And let me address something. One of the things that really makes this thing seem bent and upside down in that direction is Becky Fisher's stance against Harry Potter.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And so you got to understand where she was coming from. She had experienced some kids who really got into some witchcraft stuff through Harry Potter and things like that. And she was kind of being more kind of trying to help kids come out of that type of environment, that type of world, into something that's better and more, you know, isn't about deception, isn't about darkness, isn't about whatever you want to think about those things. That's her mindset, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so she was more being just intentional and anti those things rather than like the exact book itself.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Just because, like, I was raised in, again, similar vein where we thought speaking in tongues was demonic. So Harry Potter, definitely demonic.
Yeah,
but
actually,
while I'm used to it, I think that was still. I don't want to speak for Becky either, but I feel like it's more. listening to the culture than it is against the book. Like you said, I don't think it was about the book either, but I think it's about virtue signaling and being on the right side.
Yeah, and
because I know just from my parents, they were very anti-Harry Potter. Did they ever read it? Did they ever look at it? No.
Yeah.
And then it took me until I slipped into like Walmart or something and bought the first movie on DVD. And my dad watched it first. And then he's like, this is great. I love this movie. Oh yeah, we're gonna watch it together now.
And the graphics are awful in the first one. So, they are terrible, right?
But so I think it's like it's again that culture war stuff coming in. I don't think it's necessarily as much as her really responding to witchcraft and really trying to save people as much as she heard bad things.
Well, and that's okay. And here's where maybe my disagreement with Becky was even then, not just now, not just as I've developed, even then, was we're not at war, right, against Harry Potter. We're at war against children being deceived into doing something they shouldn't do.
Sure.
Right? A war.
So it's like misplaced anger, almost, is how you would kind of describe it.
The anti instead of pro.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about earlier, right? And so I think, like, I'm not going to change my world by being anti-Harry Potter. I'm going to change my world by introducing people to a loving, kind God.
Okay, fine. Introducing them to Chronicles of Narnia. That was definitely my youth pastor's goal.
The best Christian stuff out there right now is The Chosen. If you get a chance, that thing's fantastic.
I'm friends with Jesus and Little James, but the actors who play them. But I haven't seen it. I feel really bad. I need to. It's like
watch the first episode. You don't care for it. You don't care for it, right?
It's just like I never have time to sit down and start a new series, and when I do, it's almost always reality shows. Like I'm a big Survivor person.
Yeah. You make me think your dad who finally watched the first Harry Potter. He's like, "This is great."
No, I'm sure I would enjoy it just because I'm such a Bible nerd, but I just haven't done it. So then so I think this brings me to the big question. We've touched on it some of the what do you believe now, and I don't want it to be like I'm coming at you defensively or judgmentally.
You're good.
Judgment. So I think one of the big things that stood out to me in the film again is because of the whole like homeschool focus, and I think you also went to the Encounters of the Ark experience at one point. I don't remember. Is that true? Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking.
No, but they showed it.
But there's a lot of evolution talk, and so do you still believe that?
It's like the glob of goo, and he's like, "Oh, people think we came from this."
The goo, yes.
Okay. They brought that DVD to our house and said, "Hey, would you guys watch this? Would you want to watch this?"
Really?
And filmed me watching that. It's nothing my parents probably ever would have played. It was
there's a direct quote from your mom when you're going over, not before they like splice in the like creationist stuff, but I mean it was still kind of on creationism. It was a lesson where she's going through the book about how God created everything and how evolution wouldn't necessarily line up with God's creation. Right. And the particular quote was, evolution just doesn't make logical sense. And then your response is, that's exactly what Dad said. And she goes, see, told you. Yeah, it doesn't. That's right. Your dad is like, as if your dad kind of trumped her view, but of course they have the same view. I think that was kind of a funny response. Yeah, but so, I mean, while they might not have been as extreme as the goo guy, they were very much teaching, according to the film, you creationist only narratives.
Yeah.
Is that correct? And do you still believe that?
Yeah. Okay. So let's see here. I think that people were made on purpose for a purpose. I think that no matter how you were born, your mom went and slept with somebody that they shouldn't have, or whatever took place. It doesn't matter. At the moment you were born, you were on purpose and a child of God. And he cares and he thinks about you every day of your life, right? Mm-hmm. And so with evolution, it kind of speaks in a way that we're all just basically here by accident and by a chance, right? Mm-hmm. By the way, do not think that I am anti-science. I love like studying the universe and stars and time and space and like that type of stuff. I freaking love it. I love watching BBC Planet Earth these a deep blue ocean and a blue planet. Oh my gosh, I love those movies
Sure.
and things and Earth and everything in it, and like it's so amazing and it's so incredible to me. Okay, listen, I'll just say this and then I'll answer your question. So don't.
Okay, no, fair, go for it.
If the moon wasn't exactly how far away it is from the Earth, and then the Earth and the moon exactly where it is from the sun, and then our solar system exactly where it is in our galaxy, and our galaxy exactly where it is in the cluster of galaxies that we're near, and the cluster of galaxies we're in compared to the other clusters of galaxies in our universe, we couldn't exist.
Yeah, but I mean, so I think a lot of us are used to that apologist answer because that's pretty common.
We're looking,
but that doesn't negate evolution. That just means, for example, as well, at least when I was being raised in the church, the very big focus was to embrace evolution as God's tool. That was there to make sure that there was no rift between the church and science. That was very, very heavily pressed upon. That why wouldn't God use evolution? Of course, it's provable because it was God's design. And I think that falls right within creationism of if everything had to be lined up to a millionth of a degree to happen, then God could have made that happen over billions of years, as compared to creationism being like, it was 7 days and literal, and so we walked with dinosaurs.
And you're getting to where I want to get to. The point's kind of mute either way.
Mm-hmm. Kind of, but not well. But so is that what you believe today, though, since you are into science? Do you believe that it's like an evolutionary process that God allowed, or do you say like we're missing something still?
We can look at the same science and think different things. I mean, how many times has science said...
I mean, what it sounded like to me is you were saying basically the soul aspect, right? So like, how else would there be a soul? How else would you be consciousness and born? And I feel like that still could be with inside a vessel and have the soul be a separate thing. So if your bodies were to evolve over a certain process and then God's implanting souls into fetuses and babies, then that would still line up with evolution because the soul isn't dependent on your body being woven. It's dependent on your spirit being woven, right?
Yeah. And I guess for you, does it change who you are knowing for sure one way or the other is true?
No, and I wouldn't say even truth. I don't think there is an ultimate truth. I'm very much a pragmatist and like weird, but I think that there's just a lot to be said in embracing certain truth, and then like the dissonance that comes out of trying to fight them, or like even just like apathy about it, I think worries me.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, I'm not necessarily you because you seem very intelligent, but when it comes to like group think and when it comes to ideas that are getting passed on to like entire congregations, and people aren't necessarily into watching, you know, Blue Planet and other documentaries, and they just have a closed loop worldview and all they hear is X, Y, and Z, then they're taught not to question. They're taught that everything, the scientists are out to lie to you. We see vaccine denials, etc., etc., and it becomes dangerous because that's all they know, and they don't question anything else or think deeply. It seems like you think more deeply and more esoterically than some people do.
Yeah, and I'll get a little controversial. I'll flip what you said on its head just a bit here. Is there are people in the church that do that, right? There's Christians who they behave that way and they teach that way, and they're kind of a niche group, right? And like, oh, we're anti-science, anti-music, so dumb.
Yeah.
But on the same token, there are people in other communities in the US that are anti-Christian, have a niche group, anti-Christian, don't talk to them. They're not loving. They're not kind. They won't treat you right. And that's not true either. And so there's similarity, not similarities. There's an extremes to both of these things that aren't right.
Yeah. I mean, so I don't think that necessarily addresses the point, but I see where you're going with it in terms of it's not good to be on either side of the pole. You want to be fluid and being able to change with different people, the environments. I totally get that.
Right to your point. I still am a creationism.
Okay.
But I would never spend any amount of time arguing with an evolutionist to try to change their mind. It's not important to me. Like, that's not the main quest of life. Like,
No, I agree. Like, I mean, I don't understand evolution farther than I can throw it. I understand like the tree, but like I can't, people can get really, really into it and break out the science. I can't study the science because my eyes glaze over. I just accept it and say the scientists,
well, then
look at these major points, and I understand the major points. It's the like micro points. I'm like,
you're afraid of like a Christianity niche group that just kind of blindly accepts things, and then you're saying you just kind of blindly.
I get how that sounds, but that's why I was trying to really clarify the difference of there's understanding, right? I don't understand because I'm not a scientist.
Yeah.
And then there's accepting to like learn or to again not fight against information. I think back to what you're saying with the anti stuff. Being anti-information is my fear. So with a lot of creationists, like I said, the problem is the not questioning. The problem is the blinders. The problem is just not thinking through, and then thinking that applies to other things in life. Like let's say I'm totally cool with creationism. Let's say that I 100% am agnostic because I don't know how anything's created, right? Because I mean, I don't. Who does? We don't know how the universe started. Even if you have Big Bang Theory, like we just know that this is what the science tells us. We don't know why it happened, where it happened. But that allows me still to look at all the different sides. And it feels like while I'm agnostic about it, a lot of creationists are much more, I know this is how it worked. And as soon as you know something, that's where everything closes down. And that's where I think things get scary.
Yeah, and you know, we don't want to divide a line between being open-minded to just every single idea that could ever possibly be and come your way you should think about, and not being loving and kind to people and gracious that they have a different opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And so I can have a thing in my life, like I believe the Bible is whole and complete truth.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, that is very difficult to accept. It's not just like a good book. Like I have a bunch of other Christian books up here. I also have Game of Thrones, by the way.
I cannot read it. I tried. I
can't read it.
It's too heavy. I can't read Lord of the Rings either for the same reason. It's just like
Lord of the Rings I read, but I didn't. We read it out loud as a family. But no, like I have these books. These books are good. They're Christian books and things like that, but they're still just kind of subjective, suggestive. I'm not going to take it as like, oh my gosh, complete and total. But when it comes to the Word of God, I take it as complete and total truth, not because I blindly accept it, but because I experienced the person who wrote it. And one of the things Becky Fisher does is she allows. She allows.
Becky's trans. You heard it here first, everybody. Where are they now? Becky is now him.
To experience God, and when you film that, it looks weird.
Yeah, especially like you said, to an outside film crew who's going to focus on that, like especially like again, I don't know how to describe it well, but a lot of my audience, at least, I speak for everyone here, was raised in very much signs, looking for answers to your prayers, knowing what it feels like to be, maybe not everyone slain in the spirit, like we didn't use that language, but knowing what it felt like to have the spirit wash over you. I feel like most of us are very, we know what you're talking about, and for someone to record that on the outside, it looks insane. And I think you have to understand what the mindset is to really understand what's happening. I agree for sure.
Yeah, and I think listen, Christianity without Jesus, without a real relationship with Jesus, is an awful way to live, because it's a whole bunch of do's and don'ts, and it has, I do what's right because I met the man who does what is right. And I
find that interesting. I feel like we need a whole episode just to get on like actual theology topics, because I would totally disagree with you on like, some of that. Because I feel like you should do what's right because it's right, whether you've met the man or not. I feel like, hopefully morality should be more centered in wanting to do the best you can, regardless. And I get into that debate a lot. But also, I would want to touch on like the biblical part that we didn't really go through. So when you say the Bible is whole and complete, is your worldview very much that every answer there is to be found can be found in the Bible, or are you saying it's inerrant and that every word is true? What does the whole and complete part mean for you?
Yeah, no, and so this is not an anti-science statement, but the Bible is the only book that's written that you can read it for everything that it is and get out of every sentence in the thing. There's no other book that's like that. That does not mean that
I need more specific. That's a little vague. What do you mean? Because like for some people, like you said, Harry Potter is their entire world, and they can look at, you know, any sentence in there and you can break it down to a metaphor for life. But
listen, it's because we're spiritual beings. And I believe that. Right?
Okay.
So you can take a thing and experience it deeper than just here.
Yeah.
Deeper than just in your eyes and, you know, in taste, right? Hearing, sound, all the physical things that we have. We all know, I believe we all know that on some level there's a deeper experience that happens with anything in life.
Sure.
And so for me, I've latched onto that the most foundational thing is the word of God, and the other stuff can be experiences and good things too, but that's the only thing that's completely and totally true.
I think that's a better way to describe it. The most foundational thing to your life is the word.
Yeah.
That makes it a little easier to sum up, because when you say it's whole and complete, too many questions. I had too many questions on that.
So like I recently watched a documentary on bees and like and like how one will come back and like he spins in a certain direction and vibrates and stuff, and that's how like the other bees know the distance and direction to go find food.
Yeah, the dance.
Absolutely insane. The Bible is not going to tell me that. It doesn't say that. Now it says like, you know, that God the creation speaks of the goodness of God and speaks of his nature and things like that. And so I can subject that into the documentary too. But like, so like complete and whole truth, you understand what I'm saying? Everything in it is complete and whole truth to me, but there are other things to go and learn and grow from.
Right. Well, see, it's just, as we were talking about, denominations vary. You know, there's 45,000 denominations of Christianity, and I think very much in the same way, there's certain words that get used where it's like it needs to be broken down because it can mean 100 different things. Like, especially again, like, is that inerrancy?
Hey, this
is
guy
that looking up for the bees dance inside the Bible? People will do it. I talk to people who will be able to do that, and they'll be like, when it's talking about honey being laid on, you know, for an anointment, then it's actually talking about a metaphor for how the bees communicate, and it was right this whole time. And oh my God, science! And it's like, whoa, where did we get that? We were talking about honey, and that just proves there was bees. That doesn't prove they knew how they communicated. Calm down. So it could go either way. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
But so let's get back to the where are they now portion. So now you have a family, you're raising your kids. I know there's probably going to be some questions about that. We're going to open up the Q&A here in a second. But you, I assume, then are still like in a good relationship with your parents. You didn't like go through a rebel stage and never talk to them again or anything, I hope. I'm hoping it all's well.
No, and I didn't. And it was my own choice to do this. Like, a lot of people, like, I think it's very, 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 very few situations could a person be in that when they grow into an adult, they have no choice about who they are. Like, we all live in this world. We all have experiences. We see things. We have options to go and do, to be, and blah, 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 and go experience it. A ton of people I know who grew up in Christianity and things like that are doing whatever now, right? It was my own choice.
Yeah.
I chose to continue and to be this way. And so a lot of times they watch a film from when I was 12 years old of one day of my life in a year, right? And think that I'm forced to or couldn't have done it.
I don't know if you can comment on it, but I feel like that's kind of a good reference to your sister, if you're able to talk about that at all. Because I know she left at some point and came back. Is that correct? That just, again, me being a nerd and literally Googling where are they now every couple years.
Yeah, and I'm actually watching too. I told her about tonight, and so I think she's jumping on and watching. I'm seeing if she's commenting or anything.
Hi.
So she, when she was 18, she moved off, went to the Air Force, which is fine or whatever, but like had somewhat of a relationship with God, and then just kind of started living her own life, doing her own thing,
Sure.
going in her own direction on some things, and kind of got away from it and had some problems and things that she was working on. I don't want to get too specific.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want you to like give all of her dirty secrets, but it did make a good point of like the leaving and coming back and
We live in,
being a choice, being
we live in the same world, absolutely. And so recently, again, without getting too specific, but she had nightmares basically every night, constant. And she came out here for a visit, came to the church I go to now, and just one of the worship songs just like hit her, and she was like, okay, I don't, just like could not get it out of her head, and went back home. And for the next 2 weeks, she's like, what the, I'm not having any nightmares. I can't get this song out of my head. Like, that is unusual, not an experience she was used to. And so she's like, I don't know what this is, but I need to move back out there to find out. Something is different.
Oh, she moved? Wow.
She was living in
Arizona
at that time. We're up here in Missouri. And she had just come up for a visit. And then, again, just a few years ago, moved up here and has really just had some great experiences and some life changes. So that's good. Go for her. And it was her own choice. Nobody's
good. No, yeah, that's what I was talking. It's her own choice. I think that's important too.
Like, end a relationship with her. They're not judgmental people like you might think. They hardly get to speak in the film, right? They're very kind. They're very gracious. I've learned a lot of that from them, of just being loving people for who they are, and that you can disagree and still love someone. Like,
that's, I think, the biggest thing that everybody needs to learn. Again, I don't care what the subject is. Politics, religion,
absolutely,
the untalkable ones, but even the small things, like, I don't know, people debate over the weirdest things, but yeah, you can have different. The only thing, again, I do not hold space for is people who think that, like, Black people shouldn't exist, or that I should be murdered in the middle of my sleep, like things like that. I don't really hold space for. But outside of that, outside of people just wanting to get rid of entire races or groups or religions, I'm pretty okay.
Kind of on that topic is, I remember I was about 9 or 10 years old before I even learned that like racism really even existed. Like, it just wasn't a concept for me. It wasn't anything I understood.
I feel like it's not for the majority of kids, unless you're raised in like a really racist family. Most kids don't.
It's so good that it's more and more like that. And
it's not a natural thing. That's why it's natural to love everybody.
Yeah, you don't have so much. Like 40 years ago, there was communities where everybody who lives there is white. Like, and it's not because they wanted it that way. It just was that way, right? But now, like with social media and things like that, like there's so much more of a connected world. It's a lot easier to just see and experience more, which has caused a lot of this stuff to just kind of slowly fall. Now, obviously, I'm not saying it's fixed. Please do not.
Oh, definitely not. No, I was gonna say we have a two reaction there. I think in the majority opinion, it's fallen. Like things like you said, like racism, homophobia, like there's a lot more awareness. There's a lot more connection. Being able to see different people and interact with different people has made the majority of people, or even if you break it down to evangelical Christianity, the majority of evangelical Christians lose some of that fear and lose some of that hatred that's caused by fear. But then you have the opposite reaction where you have the vocal minority being really, really, really loud because they're so afraid of that declining number of people who like hate gay people, and they're like, oh no, what do we do? So now they're trying to repeal the entire legislation that allowed us to get married, and they're going to scream about it until they're done. So I feel like you get both sides of that from the exposure. The very good part, which is everyone starting to learn and accept more, and then the very bad part, which is the people who freak out when that happens. But okay, so I think we're at that time where we should probably open it up. I know I gave you till 6, but if I can keep you for a few minutes over, I do want to ask the chat if they have questions, and if there's anything that I pull up. I wasn't watching during the stream, sorry. So if you can type your questions in like now so that I can see them, that would be amazing. If there's anything I asked that you don't want to address, you've been pretty open, so I don't think there would be, but you don't have to. You can just say next.
Sure.
So anyway, and then while we're waiting for that to come in.
Real quick, I'm married now. I've been married for about 7 years. Yeah, 7 years.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I feel like that's newer than I thought it would have been. I don't know why.
yeah, I was 23 when we got married. I'm 31 now.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll be coming on. Yeah.
Wait, I'm older than you then. Oh my goodness.
Wow. Oldie. My goodness.
I'm 33, so like
Jeez.
no, it's just weird because like I felt like when I was a kid, I was watching Jesus Camp, and you felt like older than I did. You felt so eloquent and your speaker leadership type skills. I was
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like,
yeah.
dang, he must be
Yeah.
4 years older. I don't know
That's
what I was
funny.
thinking.
It's funny how our worldview. Yeah, and then we look back and we're like, wait a minute. And then so I have a 5-year-old son. His name is Asa James O'Brien. I want to address one thing. And I have a 2-year-old. Well, she's about to be 2 in December. I have a 2-year-old. She's going to be 2. Aspen Jade O'Brien. There was some article I read that had both of our kids' middle names were James. I'm like, no.
Oh, well, that also could have been fun. Like Rebecca St. James. I would have
Oh my
I
god.
would have totally if it were their names, I would have just lied and been like, it's because we really like Rebecca St. James.
Definitely grew up a Christian in the 90s. That's so funny.
It's the hair. I have her hair.
Absolutely. That's it.
No, literally before I came out, there's very few celebrity women I thought I had crushes on, and Rebecca St. James was definitely one of them. I thought we were destined. But again, I think it was just hair envy at the time.
Maybe. Or that Australian accent. Huh?
Oh, see, I don't even know what she sounds like. I just know her songs. Like I don't really think I've ever heard her speak. Because I didn't watch interviews or anything. This was before YouTube. This was like way back in.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, sorry, babe. And I'm not really seeing questions. I guess people are just. I guess we answered everything.
Throw them up here. Hit me up. What do you want to know?
Say the
there are some questions on.
I was like, I can scroll. Maybe that's my fault. I should be scrolling.
There are some questions on theology and things like that. We might do another one if you wanted. Maybe
that's what I'm saying. I would love to get into the theology points because I wanted this to be kind of like your platform, and I felt like I already kind of stepped over too much by pushing back on some of the stuff. But I'm like, oh, I want to get into the real stuff about like inerrancy.
Yeah.
Question for Levi. Okay, let me go ahead and throw this up on the screen. 1 second. How have you processed that guilting that youth leadership guy did to you in Jesus Camp? You won't sell out in your teens, in your 20s, 30s guy. Seemed like he was future pressure.
Oh, yeah, his name. And so, oh my gosh, am I going to remember his name? Oh, geez. That's sad. I do know his name, but for whatever reason, I cannot think of it. But no, he knew me from nothing. I never met the guy. He was kind of a last minute.
Can you give context? Because I didn't get to this part tonight, and so now I'm trying to remember.
Film where I come in, he brings me up at the front. He's like, "Hey, where's the kid with the rat tail?" He brings me up to the front, and he says, "When you turn 13, you're gonna go through a test, and here's the book that Jesus wrote about your life." And and he's like this. God, what is that guy's name? Lou Angle. That's his name. Okay. And so anyways, I never met him before. He never met me. He picked me out of the crowd, right, and spoke to me. And he said, when you turn 13, I was 3 days away from turning 13. He didn't know me from nothing.
Yeah.
Like, dang. And so so I was 12 and 13 in the film. But he spoke that over me. And so I understand what people are saying about like the guilt or the pressure, but it's actually kind of incredible when God looks at your life and says, "Hey, I have a plan for you." There's not really guilt in that. I can understand where you might see that from as far as like, oh, you better perform and do what's right or else you're not doing God's will. It's not like that. It's more like God inviting you to something amazing, to being a part of some great mission, right? And so I did go through some hard times in my teenage years. I ain't gonna lie, right? And so there's but that decision to just go after God, it was all my own. He's not there. It's not like right? I don't know this guy still, right? Like it's fine.
Lou hasn't followed up and checked on you.
Right? No, I mean no, actually. And so it is.
So was he basically saying that like God has a plan for you and you're going to like have a mission, change the world thing? Is that what it was?
I think it's things like this, honestly.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
To show people a version of Christianity they're not used to.
Okay.
Um,
Because I think when I was watching that part of the film, if I remember my reaction correctly, I was thinking, oh, Levi is going to be a pastor. Did you go into being a pastor? Did you start? Are you now?
Yeah, and I did go to, no, I'm not. I did go to a school of ministry for 3 years there, but that was more just because I just wanted to know God. There was a time in my life where being a pastor or being a missionary was like the only way to be a Christian.
Yeah.
But now I know that the way I father, the way I'm married, the way I go to the work, the job I have, and like treat people and stuff like that, that's the life I want to live. And you minister every day in everything that you do. And so
Sure. I was just realizing, even in my promotion video for our conversation, I say Levi, the preacher kid, because I look at little you and it's like you're a little preacher already. So
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I would have put money on you ended up in pastorship.
And who knows? Maybe down the road there's some. I have a heart for it. I actually do some ministry stuff to the kids at my church. Don't get too scared about that. It's very light and good and fun. And, but I want to teach them, things that I've experienced and good things.
Sure,
so I do some of those types of things, and then just honestly reaching out to guys. I have a kind of a group of guys I call each week and stuff like that, and connect with, and just check on their life. And so, but it's in the way you live. It's in
the way you live. I also just want to say that it seems like you're kind. I want to feature that.
Oh, thank you, Del Sings. I appreciate that.
I don't know what we're talking about Noah and the flood stuff, but I think that's funny. It would be physically impossible with the global wildlife. Yeah, I mean that's where we get into the theology things. Like you're saying, there's a lot of theology talk going on, and I feel like this would be an interesting one if we ever did want to do another one, because I would love to know, do you take the whole Noah story literally, or do you see it as a metaphor?
Yeah, and I think a fuller answer probably would be useful in another video or something at some other point. But there is a big arc, like convention, like theme park, basically type place.
That's what I thought you went to in the film. That's why I brought that up. The arc experience. I was like, didn't you go there?
I have not gone there. No, but
I don't know where. I thought it wasn't even open back then. I don't know where this like memory. It's like a Mandela effect, because I swear I remember you being in the arc.
Yeah, it's 6 or 7 years old, maybe a little older. I don't know, but no, it wasn't around during Jesus Camp for sure.
No.
Go check that out. Watch that or whatever. Again, I can have more of a fuller answer probably another time for a question like that.
I mean, yeah, and I would love to go over that, because Ken Ham is the champion of the arc experience, and we'll just say I don't agree with anything Ken Ham says usually. I was gonna give it a %, but I was like, there's no percentage.
It's the disinfectant bottle. 99.9999% of bacteria is killed like that.
Pretty much. Which is higher than I would say even like Jordan Peterson. There's occasional nuggets from Jordan Peterson, but
interesting.
Ken Ham.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, no, I have a few like that. Sometimes like Bill Murray will say something, I'm like, yeah.
Bill Murray or like Bill Maher?
Bill Maher.
Sorry. Oh, I was like, what is Bill Murray doing?
My bad. No.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Bill Maher has kind of fallen off.
Michael Moore.
For me. Michael Moore. There we go. That's a better one.
Every now and then he has something I'm like, well, yeah.
Because, I mean, there's not too much difference between socialism and Christianity if you're using Christianity in the way that you're using Christianity, in such as, like, wanting to end homelessness. Socialism. Wanting to make sure that disease is eradicated. Socialism. Those are all very socialist things. The issue is, again,
and our
current Republican Party is very anti those things.
And I would argue that those were Christian ideas before they were socialism ideas, but
they were. No, the entire Bible is about fighting empire, making sure you have equal distribution of not just like wealth, but like resources. And Jesus was very anti-empire. That was his entire thing, was to bring the people into their own power and take it away from the religious elite, to take it away from those who judge and were taxing. more than their share. Like his whole thing was like, screw the system.
Yeah,
for sure.
Listen, we've got to do this. We've got to do this. Yeah.
We will. I mean, I'm open to it anytime. I can schedule it right now.
Any other questions, huh?
I guess we're out of questions. I guess people are just chilling to chill, and I appreciate that. But okay, so
good. People liked our topic.
That's what I'm thinking. I think we just kept it rolling, and like I had so many questions that maybe we just answered them all.
Yeah. No, and I appreciated some of the feedback you would give me that you're like, hey, I think people would think like this and they think like this, but what about this? And that really helped. So that was good.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I have 1,000 more of those. So
okay. I can tell.
We can nail down into the theology.
Well, yeah. When we talked on the phone the other day, it just went really well, flowed really well. So I knew this was going to go well too. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. You're very easy to talk to. So that's good.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up then. I'll give a little outro, which is pretty much, I have no idea when the next Untracing Trauma episode will be, but I appreciate everyone being here and hanging out. If you want to sign up for my Discord, what is it called? Yeah, Discord. It's available via my Patreon. Let me drop my link in the bio. If you have anything that you would like to promote, Levi, now would be your time. If you have any like projects or blogs or anything you want people to know or follow.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm pretty low key with that type of stuff. I don't really have anything that I'm doing. I am working on a book right now, but that's way down the road, probably still.
Like a testimonial book, or what kind of book?
It's about kind of just my relationship with Jesus, how it's grown and developed and where it is now. Just kind of, it's more just kind of on that topic. And
oh, wait, I didn't paste. I mute something. Or are you just saying, did you stop talking?
What? No.
No. Okay. I was like, I think I lost you. I was in a copy screen.
I did kind of end mid-sentence, but it's more on the relationship with God, and that the whole Bible and everything about it in church and things like that is for us to get to know this man named Jesus. That's the main. It's not about rights and wrongs. It's not about I don't even know what morality or whatever else. It's about getting to know this man and experiencing him, and that the way we were made, God said he made us in his image. His image. He looked like this first. If the Bible is true, he looked like this first. He made us in his image so that we're a perfect match to get to know each other. He did that on purpose. And so the book's kind of on that type of topic.
Interesting. Well, I mean, again, metaphor. I don't think he meant literally image-wise. I think that was much more of being of sound spirit, like being like, you know, a conscious being is what I took that to mean. But we can get into it. We can get into it. So I'm like,
for sure.
Well, it's a little literal. But also, if you, again, I'm so ready to just get into it. But because also, though, that is the original writer's viewpoint, because God was a corporeal man when the first writings, when Genesis 2, not the first book, but the first source book before Genesis 1 came about, that would still been in the time of like Jacob, where very much God walked in the garden, like as a dude. Like this was before Asherah was written out. He would have had a wife. It would still be in the very in-between stage between polytheistic Judaism and monotheistic Judaism, and they convened with him as a one-to-one face-to-face thing. And then as the generations go on, it goes from talking to God being only in a bush and only being able to hear him, and then from the bush being removed, and now you can only have prophets that speak to God. He became more and more distant as the Bible was written. So your view actually does align with the original Jewish view of God has a body, but I was just raised different than that. Yeah, I was taught it was soul.
And my little note there, or token, would be that then suddenly he came as Jesus, physical version, right, in Jesus.
Right. That's the narrative.
To that intimacy and
correct. Yeah. So is God in B? Definitely. Because how to represent everybody, how to be male and female united as whole.
He said, in the image of God, I created them. Male and female, I created them.
Yeah. Therefore, non-binary God.
Yes, we
We'll
can.
get into it. We'll get into it. Okay, so thank you everyone for being here. I love you so much. My socials are currently at FootWashingChrist on TikTok, because if you know, you know. They remove my name everywhere. And then it's Jegayzus everywhere else. And well, if you type in at Jegayzus, I just started using my backup channel under the real name to do like affiliate stuff. So if you ever want like my curl routine or like what I'm wearing makeup wise, I'm just throwing that on there. And again, thank you, Levi, for being here. We will be announcing like a theology discussion someday soon, because I do want to do it. So stay around. Not stay around. We're not announcing it at the moment, but stay tuned. Look at my socials for postings of what time and when that would be.
And I'll show you how I curl my hair.
Thanks. I was dying for the curl tips. I knew you had some good ones. I need to know about the rat tail. Bring the rat tail back.
Oh, yes, we can tell this story. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Oh, and you still have the Reese's shirt.
I do. I don't have it with me right now.
It's okay, but like the iconic, we've labeled it iconic in the deconstruction community. The Reese's Jesus shirt, and the fact that you saved it all these years is amazing. And I just wanted everyone to know that. Yes, he has that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and end the stream, but thank you, everybody, and I will see you soon.